The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good morning and thank you for attending our webinar. This is the final part of our GP add-on series. Today we're featuring Rockton software. On the call with me is Rhonda from Rockton and also Sandra, our owner. Rockton's been a partner of ours for several years. They offer some really great products for GP. We ask if you have questions that you use the questions panel in the GoToWebinar pane to answer them, and we will try to answer them at the end. So without further ado, let me hand things over to Rhonda and let her show you some of Rockton's products.
All right. Okay. Well, thank you for inviting me to show you our products. My name is Rhonda. I've been with Rockton Software a little over a year, and before that I actually worked for Microsoft in support for 11 years, and in support I was familiar with Rockton's products and was always impressed by them, which is why I joined their team when the opportunity came up. A little bit about Rockton. Rockton Software was started in 1999 by offering dexterity customizations for the clients using GP. And today we have over 2,400 companies using Rockton products, and so that's representing over 30,000 users. We have 5 different products. There's SmartFill, which is like a Google or a Bing type search in GP, kind of like having a search engine in GP. Dynamics GP Toolbox, and that's a group of tools that basically was created just to make your life easier. There's Auditor, which is our auditing product. We have DRM, which allows you to print and manage your reports like SRS and Crystal, and then you can do that within GP. And then Omni Price, which is a pricing tool and allows for more specific, customer-specific, item-specific pricing. And so today we're going to look at SmartFill and Toolbox, and depending on time we might take a quick look at Auditor as well. So the first tool we're going to talk about is SmartFill. Like I said, it's like a search engine in GP. You can type in what you know and just wait for the results. So if you're searching on a customer and you only know the contact name or the city, you can type that into the customer number field and it'll search for you. And so with SmartFill you can save time in your lookups, and of course then when you save time you save money. So it's great for companies, especially that have a lot of data entry and do a lot of lookup, but we have all sizes of companies using it. And it'll also help you verify your data and make sure you're not creating duplicates. So let's hop over to GP and we'll take a look at SmartFill. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into sales transaction entry, and I'm just going to show you a few different examples of SmartFill working. But I'm kind of staying in one window, but it actually works in pretty much any window, any field in GP. And then also, it will work with third-party products. So you can always create a SmartFill object. We call them objects. It's like a lookup. But you can create SmartFill objects for third-party windows as long as they're dexterity-based. So here I'm in the customer ID field, and I could do different searches here. So I might know that the customer ID is in Chicago, so I can type that in, and when I tab off, it'll return my results for that city. And it also depends on what fields I'm searching on. If I had something with Chicago here, it would pull that up as well. I could also do it based on contact name. So I know that Rhonda is the contact, and that will return my results. I could do it based on part of the customer name. So in this case, I know it has resort in the name. That's the one I want, so I'm going to select it. I could also do it based on a batch ID. And I have a batch out there that I know is created, starts with August 21. Well, in this case, because it's the only batch ID that has that AUG21 in it, it just populates for me because there's nothing else to really search for. In the item number field, I could type in OM, and it'll give me my results. And in this window, I'm using the item master as the main table, but I was able to also link another table, the item quantities master. So when I get this make a selection window, I can also see the quantity on hand I have for those items. So it's kind of a nice feature too, that you can link additional tables to get additional information, so you can see everything right there and not have to go search for it. But in this case, I have 61 results, so I want to narrow it down a little bit more. I can always type in a subset search, so I know it has the word desktop in it. So these two searches together will narrow it down to just these 5 items, and I can select the one I want. I also don't have to search on item number. I could search on item class, item description, or whatever. And it also doesn't have to start with OM. So if I know that my item number has 085 in it, it could be in the middle of the item number or the item description. I can type it in and it'll still return my results for anything that has 085. So it doesn't have to necessarily begin with, it just has to contain that. So I'm going to type in another item, and again, because 128 is the only record it found, it just populated it for me. So I'm also going to show you this distributions window. This is kind of nice. A lot of people like it when they're looking for their accounts because they can type in the name of the account and it'll find it. So in this case, I'm going to type in cash. And again, this will work in pretty much any window. So I typed in cash and it returned my cash accounts. Again, I can just type in, and that's that. So that's kind of how SmartFill works. It just makes searching so much faster, especially when you know the information that you need to find. Okay, so I'm going to flip back over. All right, so I just wanted to show you this just to kind of give you an idea of calculations when it came to saving time. So for example, I wanted to look up a customer based on the contact person. So a lookup in GP to do that takes about 17 seconds, but in SmartFill it can take 2 seconds, especially if you know the contact's full name. So this can be, that's 15 seconds per lookup per savings. So this can be a huge saver when you think about how many lookups a user does on a regular basis. So even if all the users together do 100 lookups in a day, that's over $1,600 in savings per year. And so if you have a larger company that does have a lot of data entry and they're doing 1,000 lookups a day amongst all of them, that's over $16,000 savings per year. So we're going to go on to Toolbox, and once we get through Toolbox, I'll kind of stop and see if you have any questions too. But with Toolbox, you can use the tools here to make your work simpler and easier. We have a tool that will help you save on GP licenses by kicking out those users who are logged in but are inactive. We have a tool that can help you manage your security a little easier. And we have a tool that will help you find technical data behind a window, so if you're building a report or something like that. Toolbox has over 20 tools, and they all come as the toolbox. And there is a tool in there for everyone. So I'm just going to show you some of the fan favorites today. All right. And you'll notice up here we have all these little R's, and it's just for each of our products. So this one would be for Auditor, this one's for Toolbox, and then the others are all color-coded as well. So in Toolbox, you'll see that we kind of have them separated into different groups. There is the security, administration, business processes, and user experience. So I'm going to just show you a couple under security first. This inactivity timeout, this is the one I talked about where it would gracefully log you out of the system if somebody has been in there and been inactive. So here you can come in and you can determine how many minutes they need to be inactive before timing out. So one thing to keep in mind, I mean, you can put whatever you want there, but just keeping in mind that if they are in the middle of a process and they walked away from their desk and they were held up longer than they thought they were going to be, they're not going to get logged out of GP. If they're working on something, it considers them active, so they'll still be in there. And you can also exclude certain users as well. The next tool is Security Manager. This just allows you to view, report on, and manage your security in a little easier way than what GP does. So the Security Manager window looks like this. So I can see my role, I can see my tasks, and then I can see the detail that makes up those tasks. So it's kind of nice to be able to come here and see that security information in one view instead of having to use the multiple windows. And then you can move around and look at the different roles, but the nice thing is I can also change the role here, change the security, by right-clicking and selecting yes or no, whichever. But another nice thing about this is, and especially if you have a lot of changes that you need to make to security, you can export it to Excel, make all your changes there, and then import it back in. And then it's just super easy. You can look at it all in Excel and make whatever changes you need. The next group is the administration. There's the system maintenance lockout that a lot of people like, especially at year end. What this tool does is it allows you to create an optional lockout message. So basically what this is going to do is lock users out of the specific company or all companies. And when they try to log in, it would give them a message stating, you're in close in process, you will exit the accounting system in however many seconds you've determined. So it lets them know why they can't log in as long as you put the message in there. And also if somebody is already logged in and you need them to log out so that you can perform whatever maintenance you need, it'll send them a message letting them know that they're going to be logged out as well. The next group is the business processes. Payment approval. This is a popular one for payables management users if you want to have your checks approved. So you can come in here and you can set up a threshold of how much that particular tier is to be approved. So in this case, tier 1 is from $1,000 to $9,999, and then it goes to tier 2 and then tier 3. And then you can put whatever users are going to be responsible for that tier. They can be under the same tier, but they can only approve once. So once I have that set up, I can show you the payment approval window. And in here, I would select my batch, and I can see that these two checks don't need approval because they're below the threshold. And then I can see which tiers need to be approved for the other ones. So I can do that from here. And you can also access this window from other areas as well. But then you can approve and reject from here as well. The next tool is period open close. This is a great tool for those that have a lot of companies. In my case, I just have 3, but I know we have a customer that has over 200 companies, so this tool is helpful for them. But it allows you to come in here, mark the companies that you want to open and close periods for. So you can do it for all 3 companies at once. And I can just make my selections and choose to close or open, whichever I'm doing, and it'll close it for all. And this is also true if I want to generate my next fiscal year or whatever. So this is a time saver when it comes to month end or year end for all companies. All right, and then the last couple I'm going to show you is this mentor and an inspector. So mentor I can actually find here as a shortcut. So mentor is an excellent tool for new users or users that maybe don't go into the system very often and want to find a specific window. So in my case, I know that the window I need has the word removal in it. So I can just type that in and search. and it'll return those windows that have that word in it. So in this case, I wanted paid sales transaction removal. So I can see the path on how to get there, but I can also just double click from here and it'll open the window for me. And I can also see if I actually have access to the window or if I don't have access to that particular window. And then the last tool I want to show you was Inspector. So with Inspector, I can open this window, and then I can open another window, such as sales transaction entry or customer maintenance, whatever I want to open. And what it's going to do is it's going to populate that Inspector window with all the technical information behind the sales transaction entry window. So again, if you're trying to build reports or anything like that, maybe a smart list builder list, you could use this to get the information you're looking for from that window. So here I'm in this SOP type field, so I can see over here what the form name is, but what the column will be called in the table. And down here I can see all the tables that those fields would be stored in. And I can change it to display only the tables that contain the SOP type field. But then as I tab through the sales transaction entry window, it will change over here to show me the new information for that field in that window. So now it's Doc ID, and these are the tables it's stored in. And you can just continue to tab or click on whatever field you want. So that's Inspector. So before I go on, I can also show Auditor since we have some time, but I wanted to check and see if there were any questions on SmartFill or Toolbox. And I don't see anything in the chat right now.
Doesn't look like anyone has any questions at the moment.
Okay, I'm going to just talk about Auditor quick, and I'll just do a quick demo of that, and then a little more about DRM and Omni Price, and then we'll be done. So with Auditor, typically when someone's looking for an auditing product, it's for fraud prevention, prevent check skimming, fraudulent reimbursements, things like that. But there are other uses as well. Procedural clarification, to verify the procedures in your company. We used it ourselves when we had a situation where the contact name on the customer kept changing. And so we put an audit on that field and found that there were 2 users that kept changing it each day, and it was because they thought a different contact person should go in there. So we were able to put a procedure in place and what's going to go in that field. Also performance evaluation, tracking the number of transactions a user enters, checking for accuracy. I actually had somebody contact me. They were looking for help in collections management. What they wanted to do was track to see how many collection calls their collectors were making in a day, because they didn't think that some of them were making the number that they should. So we set that up. And then also for troubleshooting, coming from Microsoft, I know there are situations where there's these mysterious changes, and of course we often find that they're not as mysterious as we once thought, but sometimes you just are not sure why something keeps changing. And you can use Auditor to set up an audit on that field that is changing, and so that when it's changed, you receive a notification, and so you can go and talk to that user right at that moment to find out what they were doing, so you can at least start narrowing down what might have happened. So let me go over to GP again, and I'll just show you quick an audit group. An audit group is just how you're going to group your audits if you want to do it based on module or specific processes. It's entirely up to you. For me, I usually do it by module, and in this case I'm going to look at the payroll pay code master. So here I can see my audit details. If I want to make any changes, I can go in here and make that change. But this is where I would determine if I want to track adds, deletes, and changes. And with Auditor, you can track form audits, which is basically your window, so you just set it up based on the window. You can set it up on GP tables, which is what I have here. but then you can also use SQL tables. So that's great if you do imports or anything like that, so that you can still capture that information when you import it, or if you maybe have something outside of GP that you want to audit. So in this case, I'm going to demo the pay rate amount changing. You'll notice here that there is a note field. I have this marked because when I make a change, I want the user to tell me why they're making that change. And so this is where I pick the fields that I want to audit. And then these reference fields, it's just extra information that you can see when you drill back on the audit record in SmartList. So I'm going to go in and I am going to make a change to my pay code. So I can select my employee, and I can change the pay rate. And when I click Save, I get prompted for a note. And this is because I told the system I want to require a note. So if I didn't have a note on this, the user would not really notice that they were even being audited because they wouldn't get that pop-up message. So they could just go about their business and it wouldn't affect their work or anything like that. And now that I've made a change, to see the change, I would go into SmartList and I can look at my audit SmartList. And I have some different SmartLists set up, saved. I have it based on a user, based on sales. I have it based on pay rate changes. So I can come in here, I can see my pay rate change. And I can see the old field value and the new field value, and that is my note that I entered. So I can see the user that made the change and when they changed it. So that is Auditor. Just a couple other things. There's DRM. This again is our report manager. It allows you to print any report, so that's SRS, Crystal, Word, pretty much any ways, to the screen, to the printer. You can email them, and anytime, so on demand, or you can schedule printing as well. You can create launch points within GP, so you can print these reports right from within GP. And this is really nice if you do use a lot of Crystal or SRS reports. And then with Crystal, since you're launching right from GP, you wouldn't need as many licenses. And then Omni Price, of course. It's our pricing tool that's built on top of GP standard pricing. So you can still use the GP pricing, but then you would use Omni Price for the specific customer and item pricing. So are there any questions on any of our products?
I will also put our email here in the chat pane, so if anyone does have questions after the webinar, they can feel free to ask at that time.
Okay. And then just this last slide, we do have some self-running demos available on YouTube, or you can access them from our website. Product pricing, of course, you can contact your consultant. And then we do also offer free trial keys, so if you want to test out a product with your data before purchasing it, you can do that as well. And that's all for me.
Okay, so it doesn't look like there's any questions at this point. Again, you can feel free to reach out to us after the webinar. I'd like to thank Rhonda and Rockton for their time today. I'd also like to thank everyone who took part in this webinar series. Again, all these webinars are posted on our blog, on our website, so if you weren't able to attend one live, you can feel free to watch them there. And again, thank you.
Thank you.